The National Committee on U.S.-China Relations will continue to promote dialogue and exchanges among all sectors of society. This 50th anniversary of the Shanghai Communique is a reminder of the power of leaders to use diplomacy and engagement to narrow differences and avoid outright conflict. At this moment of deep tension around the world, today's leaders must rise to the same challenge to chart a better future. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Jacob Lew. Now, I wish to give the floor to Dr. Henry Kissinger, former U.S. Secretary of State. Dr. Kissinger, floor is yours, please.
Distinguished guests and Mr. Foreign Minister, it is a great honor for me to return to the place where the Shanghai Communique was announced, and it is a very moving occasion to remember that visit and to the exchanges that took place between our Chinese host and ourselves. Let me make a few observations about the lessons from that era. President Nixon decided that an opening to China was important for the American people and for the people of the world. And we sent out various signals to the Chinese side, awaiting a response. Some of the signals were picked up by our own Foreign Service officers who had experience in international affairs, because we had proceeded very quietly. And a group of them called on President Nixon to warn him that an opening to China might risk conflict with the then Soviet Union. President Nixon decided to disregard this warning because he thought that the benefits to mankind, to the cause of peace, to the Chinese and to the American people were more important. So when I took the secret trip to China, President Nixon and I discussed what subjects we should discuss. And we concluded that we would, of course, mention the topics of disagreement that existed. But it was most important to establish the idea with our Chinese hosts that we thought that the future evolution of international politics, of peace and the world economy required exchanges of views between the United States and China and common positions to the maximum extent possible. So, to my great and pleasant surprise, Premier Zhou and I treated that first visit in the same manner. And he mentioned to me at the opening session that one purpose was to remove the mystery between our two countries of how we were perceived by the other. So then another visit was arranged to prepare the Shanghai Communique. During that discussion, The original idea of the United States was to propose a conventional communique into which we would put some statement of American-Chinese cooperation. Premier Zhou, on behalf of Chairman Mao, suggested that the United States and China, not having talked to each other for 25 years, should not pretend that there was total agreement between us. And it was suggested that each side should state its own views and that we should allow disagreements to be expressed in a joint communique, though that is not the practice. And I do not know any other international communique in which this took place. But the thought was that then what we agreed on would have much greater significance because it showed that we had worked on overcoming disagreements, that some disagreements remained, but that we had made major agreements. And these agreements included views, a statement that the United States would not challenge the idea of one China, and also that China and the United States had common views about the danger of hegemony in the world, and that we would oppose it, each in our own views. There were a number of other agreements. I mention all of this because at this moment, it continues to be essential for the peace of the world and for the progress of the world that these basic principles be retained, and above all, that it is inevitable that countries with the magnitude of the United States and China and the different history might not agree on every issue that is before the world. But what we should learn from the past, and what I hope we can project into the future, is that we maintain a permanent dialogue and that we tell each other frankly what our thinking is on key issues, and that we should do that with an attitude that in the world of modern technology, pressure and military threats will not do anything other than threaten the survival of humanity. And so with this attitude, we have huge tasks. We have the normal tasks of great power and action. We have the development of a technology that in itself produces the capabilities with such rapidity that have threatening aspects, and these must be discussed and attempted to be limited or removed. We have problems of medical pandemics that are spreading around the world. We have the fact that we interact in economics in such a way that neither side should attempt monopolistic outcomes, and each side will attempt to benefit its own people and maintain progress for everybody at the same time. These are some of the great challenges before us, and I am confident that in the years ahead, we will be able to find ways of dialogue, of cooperation, and of remembering that in the world of modern technology and modern economics, there are no victors in any conflict. There can only be fundamental destructiveness. And with this attitude, I have great confidence that our leaders will find a way to approach our relationships in that spirit. And then 50 years from now, when people assemble again to reflect on Chinese-American relations, they can look back to a century of cooperation and understanding and settlement of conflicts that might arise from time to time. And with this, let me thank CBIFA and the Chinese friends here for the extraordinary hospitality that has always been shown to me personally, and for providing the occasion for a historic event, which is the Shanghai Communique. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Henry Kissinger. Just now, President Jacob Liu said in his speech, and talk about the Ukraine issue, I would like to make a very quick response. China's position on the Ukraine issue is consistent, remain unchanged, based upon the merit and make an independent judgment. State Councillor Wang Yi has, on many occasions, made explicit China's position. That is my response. Now I would like to invite State Councillor Wang Yi and the Foreign Minister to make a video keynote speech. Secretary Li Qiang, Dr. Henry Kissinger, friends, distinguished guests, it gives me great pleasure to attend the meeting in commemoration of the 50th anniversary of the Shanghai Communique, and together with people from both countries, walk through again that ice-breaking journey, draw experience from history, and seek inspiration from the road ahead. Let me begin by extending congratulations on the convening of this meeting. 50 years ago today, right in the Jinjiang Hotel where you are gathering, China and the United States jointly issued the Shanghai Communique. It thus ended the prolonged estrangement between the two countries and started the process towards normalization of China-U.S. relations. It signified the willingness of two major countries with different social systems to coexist peacefully and marked the beginning of the structural transformation in international relations. Guided by the spirit of Shanghai Communique, China and the United States have scored an array of major progress in their relations. The two countries, once at war with each other, have established 50 pairs of sister provinces and states and 233 pairs of sister cities. Before the COVID-19 pandemic, more than 300 flights shuttled between the two countries every week, and over 5 million travels were made across the Pacific every year. China-US business ties, once negligible, expanded to $750 billion in bilateral trade and $240 billion in two-way investment. From tackling terrorism, financial crisis, and Ebola, to providing leadership in the signing of the JCPOA and the conclusion of the Paris Agreement on climate change, China and the United States did many great things benefiting the world through their cooperation. As the Chinese saying goes, when drinking water from the well, one shall not forget those who dug it. At this moment, we should pay high tribute to Chairman Mao Zedong, Premier Zhou Enlai, President Richard Nixon, Dr. Henry Kissinger, and other Chinese and U.S. leaders of the older generation, and we would also like to express our heartfelt gratitude to people from all sectors who have long committed themselves to China-U.S. friendship and cooperation. Friends, the China-U.S. relationship, kicked off by the Shanghai Communique, has gone through 50 years of development with twists and turns. To get a correct understanding of the communique's spirit will help us see more clearly why the ice in the relationship thawed and the barriers were removed, and know how the relationship can forge ahead. History tells us that by following the trend of the times, we can make the right strategic choice. The issuance of the Shanghai Communique shook the world and also changed the world. Chinese and the U.S. leaders of the older generation discerned keenly the expectation of the world for easing international tensions, and they acted on the aspiration of the Chinese and American peoples for peace and friendship between the two countries. With great political courage, they made a historic handshake across the vastest ocean in the world. Half a century later, the fundamental logic that prompted the two countries to work towards each other remains unchanged. History tells us that by seeking common ground while resolving difference, we can attain peaceful coexistence between countries with different social systems. The two sides agreed to disagree in the Shanghai Communique, thus making their agreement even more significant. This created a first in the history of diplomacy and set a good example for the establishment and growth of relations between countries with different systems. The older generation of leaders in both countries realized that, despite their differences, neither side had the intention to change the other. Both sides hope to see that the two countries grow in parallel and conduct cooperation based upon shared interests. This is an important spirit embodied in the Shanghai Communique. It remains valid 50 years on today. History tells us that by following the basic norms of international relations, we can build real guardrails for China-US relations. The Taiwan question is the core issue in the Shanghai Communique, and the One China principle is the cornerstone of China-US relations. The communique underscores that countries, regardless of their social system, should abide by the principles of respect for the sovereignty and territorial integrity of all states, non-aggression against other states, non-interference in the international affairs of other states, equality and mutual benefits, and peaceful coexistence. This fully echoes the purposes and the principles of the UN Charter. It worked in the past, it is relevant now, and it should be upheld in the future. Friends, the China-US relationship is facing rarely seen daunting challenges since the establishment of the diplomatic ties. This has also caused the international community to worry deeply about the resurgence of a divided world. An important reason for this situation is that the principles and the spirit established by the Shanghai Communique have not been fully followed. China and the United States are once again challenged to make a historic choice: to continue with peaceful coexistence or to veer into conflict and confrontation, to go on with openness and cooperation or to turn back into seclusion and antagonism. In fact, the right answer is already enshrined right there in the Shanghai Communique. During his virtual meeting with President Joe Biden last November, President Xi Jinping put forward the three principles of mutual respect, peaceful coexistence, and win-win cooperation, laying out the framework for future growth of China-US relations. President Biden responded positively, stating that the United States does not seek a new Cold War or to change China's system. The revitalization of U.S. alliances is not anti-China, and the United States does not support Taiwan independence and has no intention to have a conflict with China. These important common understandings between the two presidents are not just a furtherance of historical experience. Moreover, they are also new and creative advances that conform with the trend of the times. We urge the United States to reinstate a reasonable and pragmatic China policy and work with China to put into real action the common understandings between the president as well as the President Biden's statement in a bid to put China-US relations back on track at an early date. First, we must uphold the One China principle and consolidate the political foundation of China-US relations. Taiwan has been an inalienable part of Chinese territory since ancient times. In 1943, leaders of China, the United Kingdom, and the United States issued the Cairo Declaration, stating clearly that all the territories Japan has stolen from the Chinese, including Taiwan and Penghu Islands, should be restored to China. In 1945, the Potsdam Declaration, which was aimed to end World War II, reiterated that the terms of the Cairo Declaration shall be carried out. All these shows unequivocally that there is no controversy at all in the international community regarding China's sovereignty over Taiwan, and it was in accordance with law that Taiwan returned to the embrace of the motherland. As a legacy of the Chinese Civil War and due to the interference by the United States and other external forces, the two sides across the Taiwan Strait have been mired in a special situation of prolonged political antagonism. However, neither China's national sovereignty nor its territorial integrity has ever been divided. The fact that both the mainland and Taiwan belong to one and the same China has never changed, and the entire Chinese people have never stopped their endeavor for national reunification. In 1971, the United States affirmed to China the principles it would follow with regard to the Taiwan question. They include the United States would acknowledge that there is only one China in the world and Taiwan is part of China. The United States would not repeat the phrase that the status of Taiwan is undetermined. The United States has not supported and will not support movements for Taiwan independence. President Nixon reaffirmed these principles to Premier Zhou Enlai during his visit to China in 1972, and that was how the Shanghai Communique came into being. It was explicitly stated in the Shanghai Communique that the United States acknowledges that all Chinese on either side of Taiwan Strait maintain that there is but one China and that Taiwan is a part of China. The United States government does not challenge that position. In the 1978 Joint Communique on Establishment of Diplomatic Relations, the United States acknowledges the Chinese position that there is but one China and Taiwan is part of China, and recognizes the government of the People's Republic of China as the sole legal government of China. In 1982, the two sides issued a communique of August 17th, in which the U.S. side reiterates that it has no intention of infringing on Chinese sovereignty and territorial integrity, or infringing in China's internal affairs, or pursuing a policy of two Chinas or one China, one Taiwan. The U.S. side also states that it does not seek to carry out a long-term policy of arms sales to Taiwan, and that it intends to reduce gradually its sales of arms to Taiwan, leading over a period of time to a final resolution. However, not long after establishing diplomatic ties with China, the United States enacted the so-called Taiwan Relations Act, and later covertly pieced together the so-called Six Assurances to Taiwan. Both of these were unilaterally concocted by the United States. They conflict with U.S. commitments in the three joint communiques and violate the One China principle established by the UN General Assembly Resolution 2758, which is widely observed by the international community. They are therefore illegal and void from the very beginning. China-US relations as a state-to-state relationship can only be built upon common understandings reached between both countries, namely the three joint communiques, rather than on domestic laws or unilateral policies of the United States. That is a universally accepted institutional rule and a basic principle of international relations. The United States shall not place its domestic legislation above international law. A review of this episode of history shows the facts on the Taiwan question are crystal clear, and the historic dynamics of the One China principle are self-evident. History brooks no falsification, and what is right or wrong shall not be distorted. The United States shall return to the original and true meaning of the One China principle, honor its political commitment to China, fulfill its due international obligations. It should stop draining the One China principle of its essence and hollowing it out. It should stop encouraging and supporting Taiwan independence moves, stop attempting to use Taiwan question to contain China, and stop saying or doing things that interfere in China's internal affairs. Only in doing so can peace and stability across the Taiwan Strait be truly maintained and the larger interests of China-US relations be upheld. Second, we must respect each other and ensure the right direction for China-US relations. China and the United States have always been and will continue to be countries significantly different in social system, history, culture, and many other areas. This is a fact that no one can change and also reflects that the diversity of human civilization. The two sides need to view their relations in a broader perspective and more inclusive attitude, and choose dialogue over confrontation, cooperation over conflict, openness over seclusion, and integration over decoupling. China's social system and development path are of the firm choice and collective will of the 1.4 billion Chinese people and the natural course of the evolution of China's history. China respects the social system of the United States and never bets against the United States. China hopes that the United States will stay open and confident and keep growing and making progress. Likewise, the United States should respect China's development path and welcome a peaceful, stable, and prosperous China. It should abandon its mania for zero-sum games, give up its obsession with encircling and containing China, and break free from the shackles of political correctness. The United States should truly see China as a partner in the cause of development rather than an adversary in power games. Cooperation represents the mainstream of China-US relations. To define the relationship as competition is oversimplification. Even in competition, there should be boundaries, as well as widely recognized international rules based on fairness. This not only enables one country to be faster, stronger, but also makes all countries more united for a shared future. Even if there is competition, it should be about who does a better job in running the country and who contributes more to the world. Third, we must pursue win-win cooperation and promote the development of the prosperity of both countries. At present, China and the United States are both facing new circumstances for development. For China to realize high-quality development and common prosperity for all, and for U.S. to rebuild the middle class, and cooperation is the best choice for both sides. The world is big enough to accommodate the development of both China and the United States, and it expects the two countries to strive for win-win results and achieve all win with all other countries. China is ready to work with the United States to fully bring out our comparative strengths, expand practical cooperation in such areas as trade, investment, energy, and infrastructure, and steadily make our cooperation list longer. China will continue to comprehensively deepen reform, will share development opportunities with the world through a shorter negative list, better business environment, and a greater institutional opening up. We welcome more active involvement by U.S. firms in China's new development paradigm featuring dual circulations. The United States should also take the lead in building an open world economy and observing international economic and trade rules, and provide a fair, equitable, and non-discriminatory market environment for businesses from all countries, including China. Amity between the people holds key to good relations between countries. People-to-people exchanges serve as a bridge for greater mutual understanding between our two peoples. We should promote the engagement, communication, exchanges, and cooperation at all levels in all areas. We should step up the exchange at subnational levels and between cities, peoples, think tanks, media, businesses, ignite our people's enthusiasm for interaction and strengthen the bond of friendship between China and the United States. Fourth, we must shoulder responsibilities as major countries and provide the world with more public goods. Global challenges call for global cooperation. China and the United States as major countries need to stand up to the mission and play due roles. The The two countries can join hands to provide more vaccines for Africa and the rest of the developing world with a view to building a shield for immunity and contributing to a global victory against COVID-19. We need to maintain macroeconomic policy coordination, inject greater confidence and resilience to the global economy, and bolster solid recovery from the pandemic. We can work together to address the climate crisis, protect nature, and realize green, low-carbon, and sustainable development worldwide. China is open to U.S. participation in the Belt and Road Initiative and the Global Development Initiative. We're also ready to consider coordinating with the Build Back Better World Initiative of the United States to provide more quality public goods for the world. China and the United States jointly stated in the Shanghai Communique that neither should seek hegemony in the Asia-Pacific region. Today, this statement remains as relevant as ever. China does not, and will not seek any hegemony, and neither should the United States. The Asia-Pacific region, where the two countries' interests are most interwoven and their interactions most frequent and close, should well become a demonstration field of building mutual trust and cooperation rather than a backyard where one pursues a sphere of influence, let alone a wrestling ground for confrontation or conflict. The United States should stop initiating bloc confrontation and developing small, exclusive circles in the region. It should work with China and other regional countries to build a big Asia-Pacific family featuring openness and inclusiveness, innovation-driven growth, greater connectivity, and mutually beneficial cooperation. Friends, distinguished guests, both the Chinese American peoples are great peoples. Since the door of the China-US relations has been open, it should not be closed again. Since the world has emerged from the Cold War, it should not see the descending of another Iron Curtain. Standing at a new historical starting point, we need to draw wisdom from the Shanghai Communique, follow the guidance of the important common understandings between the two presidents, and find the right way for China-US relations under the new circumstances on the basis of mutual respect, peaceful coexistence, and win-win cooperation so as to deliver benefits to both countries and the world. And that is the due responsibilities and obligations of China and the United States. Thank you. Thank you, State Councilor Wang Yi, for the wonderful presentation. And I would also like to thank all the speakers for the first session. That is the end of the opening ceremony. Now we have a 20-minute tea break. Please come back after the tea break for the second part of storytelling. Thank you.